Hello, everyone. I would like to thank DQ for this opportunity to speak at DQDeepTech Virtual Event 2021. I see we have some great topics, great speakers, and this event is going to cover deep technologies like AI, ML, future of work, automation, etc. The aim here is building sustainable ecosystem that facilitates innovation generation, innovation co-creation, and bringing synergies of private sector, large companies, and promising startups, all of them together. What I'm going to talk about today is AI for public good. And before we get further, we need to understand what is public good and how is it defined by the economist. A public good in the economic sense can be characterized as a desirable good that is likely to be undersupplied or not supplied at all by private companies. And generally what falls under this, like your infrastructure networks, countries' military solutions for environmental challenges, internal security, justice delivery, etc. Now, these are some of the things where we don't have many private entities coming and doing fundamental research or coming up with solutions, unless until the companies or the departments look for it through RFPs, etc. Having said that, let me also tell that application of AI in government has been done quite well in some of the departments, like the tax departments and security agencies. For example, tax departments have used ML-based applications for fraud detection, especially in case of wrong refunds or suppression of taxes, where they have labeled data and they use that to create a model wherein they can do a risk analysis based on the various parameters of taxpayer. Similarly, machine learning-based application has been developed based on past audit data to come up with an audit selection tool by both tax departments, indirect tax, which is GST, and by income tax, which is direct taxes. Income tax has gone one step further by assimilating data from multiple sources like banks, credit card companies, land registries, luxury good sellers, membership of high-end clubs, foreign visits, etc., to identify new taxpayers. And also whether there is if there is any anomalous behavior of the entity or the taxpayer. Also, they have used it for policy making, especially in doing what-if analysis if the rate of tax on a particular commodity is increased or reduced, what impact it will have. So it's commodity level tax estimation as well as forecasting. Security agencies have also used, but I don't have much experience in that area, and hence I will not get into that. Now, that was one glimpse of how AI is being used by some of the agencies of the government. But there are a large number of sectors where these technologies like machine learning, blockchain, computer vision, NLP are not being used at the desired level or the level at which it's being used in commercial sector, where a lot of startups or other companies are working to produce some very innovative technologies, very, very innovative products. And the challenge is, how do we bring them here? How do we interest them so that they also start focusing on these areas which touches lives of people, and then we get better desirable results. Now, some of the sectors which I'm going to talk about are also very much related to the sustainable goals of the United Nations. First one is disaster management. Now, these are specific crisis-related challenges where AI can play a great role. And in fact, in many parts of the world, these have been used in a big way. For example, how do you respond to natural and human-made disasters in search and rescue missions? Management of outbreak of disease. Now, how do we use AI to map, trace, and forecast the trend? For example, for COVID, multiple research organizations, academic organizations, and the government have worked together. The data which has been generated have been used to not only for contract tracing and identifying the areas, but also for forecasting the trend and areas which may get impacted for identifying and sealing of those areas. Other area for disaster management is like use of AI on satellite data to map and predict the progression of wildfires or tsunami impact areas and things of that sort, where the rescuers or the firefighters can use their abilities best. Drones with AI capabilities have also been used in areas struck by disasters, especially what happened in Uttarakhand recently. And their drones were used in a big way, not just to get an aerial image, but also to the AI capabilities were used to find out the missing persons, also for identifying the infrastructure which required to be reestablished and things of that sort. So government of Uttarakhand is working on some interesting projects using drone, and that's one area where few startups have already started working with them. The next one is economic empowerment. Now, how do we use AI in opening access to economic resources and opportunities, including jobs, development of skills, and a very important item, which is market information for vulnerable sections of the society. So let me give you some examples. Like Wadhwani Institute of AI has developed an application using which the farmers can detect red cotton bollworms early, and it can also generate advisory for farmers. It's running on pilot basis in 3 states, and hopefully it will be made available for the whole country. It's a very simple application, but then it took a hell of a lot of time to develop the application, where the image of insect stuck on a sticky pad is taken by a smartphone having that application, and then and there it generates and tells extent of attack, what are the things to be done, and then that data also goes to the district and state authorities for compiling and taking a decision about the onset and other work which needs to be done by the government agencies. Similar other AI-based tools in the field of agriculture for smart farmers, for improving yield, for advisories based on weather, soil moisture, type of crops, stage of crops, etc. have been done. But then there is lots of scope. Unlike Western countries where these have been used largely for picking up the fruit and then doing other agriculture work, where they can replace labor, that those are not the need here, because we cannot get into those areas. But there are other portions where AI-based tools can be used for the help of small farmers. Skill training is again another one where, like Wadhwani Foundation uses AI-based platform to track the progress, ensure that the trainees are, those who are getting trained are getting the right kind of inputs, and also progressing as per desired level. Similarly, adaptive learning and providing content based on knowledge and skills of the student is an area where AI is being used in other parts of the world and can easily be used here as well. And that brings me to education, which has received a lot of attention of the industry in terms of development of tools using AI, but largely it's for management and development of content, as well as for administrative management of the educational institutions. If we come to government-run schools, which incidentally cover or provide services, education services to more than 50% of students in our country, not much application. AI-based tools have been developed for them, and it could be done for maximizing students' achievement, improving teachers' productivity, predicting which student may drop, for creation of content, making test papers, evaluation of knowledge acquired, etc., etc. So this is one area where, again, we have a lot to do, and that is what we thought we should bring before this August audience, where we have lots of startups and other companies which are working in these fields, and those who have interest in to work in social sectors can do that. Another one comes environment and sustainability, and their AI tools are being used for managing challenges like sustaining biodiversity, combating and the depletion of natural resources, pollution, climate change, etc. A company called Rainforest Connection from Bay Area in the US, it's a non-profit company, uses AI tools such as Google's TensorFlow in conservancy efforts across the world. And its platform can be used to detect illegal logging in vulnerable forest areas by analyzing audio sensor data. So that kind of many such tools are also getting developed in the field of environment and sustainability. The next area is equality and inclusion. And here we can have like reducing and eliminating bias based on race, sexual orientation, religion, citizenship, disabilities, and things of that type. Another use case could be in like a tool which can help help identify dyslexic children early. And we see that if it gets delayed, the children face lots of challenge in the school. And many times teachers are not able to find it out. So can we develop a tool which looks at what they are writing or how they are responding? And based on that, we identify such children so that they can be given appropriate educational inputs which are designed for such children. Health is an area where huge amount of work is done by companies in private sector using AI either for scanned images, MRI scans or X-ray scans or other disease detection where images are used, or even the retina images are used, or there are multiple such solutions which have come up in the field of health using AI. However, there are certain other areas where not much has been done, and that's like malnutrition issues or identifying underlying factors which may differ from area to area or community to community. Can we find out if there is any relationship between the female literacy, the general affluence, incidence of poverty, female-male ratios, etc., etc. So the idea is that rather than just coming up a figure for malnutrition or stunting or such other parameters for the whole country, can we identify the spread right at the sub-district level or the district level, and then look at the factors which are responsible so that the policy can be tweaked to that extent so that desired results are achieved in those areas as well. Infrastructure management is something where, again, AI-based tools are being used in multiple locations, multiple geographies. For example, in transportation sector, we have traffic light networks which are optimized using real-time traffic cameras. The data coming from them, which are basically through IoT sensors to maximize vehicle throughput. Now, what does it do? It reduces congestion and thus reduces use of petrol and diesel by vehicles which unnecessarily idle at the crossings or while the traffic is crowding on the road. Now, AI can also be used to schedule predictive maintenance of public transportation systems such as trains, public infrastructure, including bridges, to identify potentially malfunctioning components so that unplanned downtimes are reduced and the resultant delays are eliminated. Water and water management is another area where AI-based tools are being used. In fact, in our country as well, in some of the cities, it has started to reduce wastage of water. That's number one. But the ultimate aim is equitable distribution of water. The challenge here is that the entire network is underground, so it's not visible. And how do we make use of sensors and IoTs, get that data, process it, and identify where the leakages are, where the wastage of water is taking place, so that required steps could be taken to take care of them. Urban planning and use of AI is synonymous with smart cities, which is nothing but AI, improved urban systems, and AI for city management. Now, what kind of things are involved there? One is public transportation optimization, what I just mentioned earlier, which is how do we manage the traffic to reduce or to maximize vehicle throughput. Next one is air quality monitoring and keeping citizens informed in real time of the status in their areas and what steps they can take. Similarly, making streets safe for people by using data coming from the cameras and other devices, and ensuring that police get deployed based on predictive policing method, what we call. Then optimization of garbage collection and recycling. So there are lots of areas where there is possibility of use of AI, and in some part of the world, it's already being done. Security and justice. Here, basically, we talk about internal security or policing, as well as criminal justice system. Now, in policing, largely it's prevention of crime and other physical damage by optimizing deployment of police force in areas which are likely to have violent crime. And this is basically nothing but predictive system based on past data of crime, location-wise, time-wise, so that the system then prompts the police authorities how to deploy their manpower to have maximum impact from that. The use of AI, especially the facial recognition, which is again, though it's a controversial use, but has been helpful to identify lost and found people by matching lakhs of photos taken at different age groups or different ages of the people, whether it's children or even the adults. And this has been effectively used by many police authorities in the country. NLP, not only for chatbots, but also for creation of summary of cases and statements. And some of the European countries have already started making use of this, where the statements recorded are used, and then the system tells them what questions to ask based on similar kind of crime which was committed earlier and the modus operandi based there. Pattern recognition. This is basically to identify suspects or the modus operandi. Then we also have use of AI for simulating hazardous environment, and this is basically computer vision, and also to create a visual version of the crime scene. Now, this is being used in few European countries where multiple photographs are taken of a crime scene, and then a virtual version is created. And in one case, this was presented before the court and taken cognizance of. And of course, we are all aware of how drones are being used for crowd management, for doing recce in terrorist or such other infested areas, for survey and mapping, and for monitoring of the construction of various infrastructure. Now, having discussed all the opportunities, the next question comes, how do we get access to them? So if some of you are ready and want to work, how do you how do we proceed ahead? The government agencies are generating huge amount of data, especially after large number of e-governance projects have become operational. And there is also willingness to use these technologies there to get better insight into what's happening, how the policies are getting implemented. The question of sharing, and that's a big issue, and that is where the Ministry of Electronics and IT is now working to make data sharing and access policy much better and easier, so that more and more of data, of course, taking care of the privacy concerns and sensitive data is not shared, but aggregate data could be shared for creation of products, etc. And of course, one has to take care of the quality of data, where some improvement is required. Now, the last question will be that how do such startup companies work with government agencies, where largely the selection is RFP based, and many of them have entry barriers which are significant for small companies or startups in terms of turnover or the number of years of experience. And there has been a change where now Niti Aayog as well as many other ministries are encouraging the startups to come and work with them, especially National E-Governance Division of Ministry of Electronics and IT, as well as at the state level, few state emission teams. And one of the models could be that if a product has been developed, that could be presented to them as a Swiss challenge. Or in some other cases, we come and work with other partners or institutions like where I am currently, Wadhwani Institute of Technology and Policy, where a paid pilot is done and it is presented before the government with whom the WITP is working. So these were some of the thoughts which I wanted to share today with all of you. And once again, I would like to thank the Data Quest for giving me this opportunity to talk about how AI can be used in public sector, especially in those sectors where the penetration is not that high, and we do need to work together with the government to bring the fruits of these emerging technologies. Thank you very much.